All right. Okay, so does everybody have, I've got a Python notebook up. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I did with the capstone was I moved into using Python to do this. The reason why was I started with, just like everybody else, working SAS. However, professionally, without, I could do the academic stuff to brush up on the SAS. However, if I wanted to do something at work, I was essentially restricted to R. So I did that since we had a couple classes in there. Had issues with R, started seeing if there were other open source options out there. And that's how I sort of stumbled along with Python. So similar to R, there's a number of libraries that you call in order to have different functions coming in. But one of the big advantages is that there's not 20 or 30 different libraries you need to bring in just to replicate something that you could do simply by launching SAS. So that really hit what I was looking for. The libraries that I'm bringing in right now are relatively, these are actually the most common ones for doing any type of predictive analytics project. The other one, bring in here, this is open the operating system. Just to start off, since I have import OS, I'm going to do an OS command to get my current working directory just to see where I'm at, and then have that run, and then that'll pop up in just a moment. So one of the reasons why I like Notebook for doing Python is I'm very visual. I know some of us came from a database background, others were simply using Excel, hit the limitations, and then read a Nate Silver book, and then we decided, okay, I think it's time to learn a language for coding. I'm still very visual. It's one of the issues I had with the academic version of SAS. I would go back and forth, maybe type 4 or 5 things, go see if it ran, come back. That's what really Notebook reminded me of, was having that ability. So the fact that you can run something, hit the play button, come back, it's one of the features that really drew me to it. So what I'm going to bring in right now is I'm using pandas, as you see the PD, and I'm giving it the read CSV command. So I'm going to pull a CSV file off of my desktop. This is going to be the Titanic data set. If you've done the Kaggle competition or the tutorial, you may be familiar with the data set. So you got it right there. And let's just double check that it was read in. Heads and tails, you could search here. This will just give me the top 5. And then we could see visually it's right there. The advantage is when you get lower down, you could go ahead and look at the top of the index and you're like, okay, wait, was it gender? No, it was sex. Name was this. T-class. There's also case sensitivity. You could get really, really deep into it, such as changing the names of columns if you want to. But for right now, I'm just going to do the basics and take us through the descriptive side. One of the things I'd point out is if you see in CAB in the first one, you get NaN. That's not a number. So if you see that, that's how we fill in our missing values. It has some options on how to handle that if you want to drop, if you want to fill in. But that's a little bit more advanced for what we're going through. So I named this DF as in data frame. Just think of it as Excel spreadsheet, kind of columns and rows, nothing too fancy there. And then for the descriptive stats, we will do describe as soon as I type correctly. And that's it, just like that. Hit play, and here we go. We get our usual stuff. We have our count, mean, standard deviation. Now if you notice, name, sex, these are left off. So now let's say, for example, you wanted to go ahead and get that specifically for the age. So go ahead and hit describe and have that run. And we've got our typical batch of stats going forward describe. Now, one of the things with my project, because I'm going into something a little bit later, I had to, for the quantiles, you notice you only have 25, 50, 75 on top of the min-max. Well, that one you can specify as well. Just go ahead and do a couple of little, let's get that correct. And then let's say, for example, I just wanted the top 10% and the bottom. So just do that, 0.9. Sounds good. And run that. And I say simple as that. So right there. The other part too is it has, I will say that the graphics feature definitely went down. There's some more libraries coming out. I'm actually experimenting with one right now. But the basic one that they have there just essentially gets the job done, especially if you're just doing your EDA. Say, for example, we wanted to look at just graph our age from what we saw there. The big one that, for my project specifically, I'm joining a lot of CSV files. So the fact that I'm able to do a group by function, similar that we would do with a SQL database, has really been my saving grace. So for example, what I'm going to do here is we had our first data frame, or DF. I'm going to make a second data frame here, and then tell it from the first data frame, go ahead and group by, and I'm going to grab, that was gender or sex? Sex, okay. So I'm going to ahead and grab that. Make sure I'm single, good. And what I want to do is I want to see gender, and I want to see age as well. So let's get age in there and then ask it to describe and see what we get with here. Okay. And then we get the preloaded count, mean, min, max, as you can see there, for both genders. So the other part too that you can do is, now that we have this group together and we could see this, we could also get the histogram set up. But what I want to do is I want to tell it to grab a specific group out of here. So I'm going to have it grab the males first and close that off. And then we're going to do that by age and then put it on a histogram this time. And we should get right there. So one of the advantages of working in Notebook is, let's say I wanted to do females, but I want to do it relatively quick. Just go ahead and do right that, and it should plot on top of it. And there we go. So right there, that's just a brief overview of IPython Notebook. A lot of the tutorials, you'll see they'll save it like this. So if there's more advanced functions or functions that you're used to operating in, the tutorials are really good. And that's pretty much all I have. Any questions?
Well, Andrew, this is Don. This is remarkable. I'm guessing Notebook, I'm not a Python expert, but I'm guessing Notebook is a development environment for Python, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm actually in the background here. See if my terminal will pop up. I minimized it. But yeah, this is when I started working Python, this is what it looked like, and that just wasn't really helping.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this looks easier to read. Okay. Now, I don't know Python. I don't know IP Notebook. What would be something that you would recommend for somebody like me if I decided I really want to learn Python and I really want to learn this? Is there one resource, maybe you can post it on the discussion board, or, you know, post it in like the cafe or something like that, and say, this is what I would recommend, either YouTube videos or something, or maybe tell us where we could learn this stuff.
Absolutely. What I would recommend is to learn Python the hard way. I'll just
hard way. Wow.
I believe it's a .org. So it's hard way is actually the easy way, because it is 52 drills that you do by repetition. If it's your first programming language, the first 5 or 6 you're going to be hitting print, and then just learning from there. That's actually the intent of it. one of the big advantages with this one is if you buy the book, which is about $25, $30, depending on where you get it from, it comes with a free 45-day trial of Safari, Safari Online. Now, inside Safari Online has almost every Riley book you can imagine. So if you end up going through Learn Python the hard way relatively quick, you also have some of those more advanced things that you can go through. Now, one of the things I would recommend for us is data analysis is pretty much done with the Pandas library. And the creator of this, Wes McKinley, I believe his name is, wrote a full book on how to use Pandas, specifically how to use it with IPython Notebook. So if you're one of those that really learns by copying and repeating, once you have an idea of how Python works as far as an object-oriented language, moving over to Python for data analysis is a great second step. And absolutely, having gone through this, it'll be a huge head start, and you'll probably pick it up very, very quick.
That is great information. This is really a very nice talk that you did. This gives me a quick overview, and it makes Python look not so scary.
Thank you.
That's the mark of, incidentally, everyone, watching what Andrew just did, this is kind of how your presentation's got to be. Talk to me at this high level. He didn't go and crawl into the weeds. He gave, just enough of an overview that at least I'm excited about learning Python now.
Yes, so. This is a great presentation. This is Siva. I really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be going to the link to see how to learn Python.
So, Andrew, are you going to be pretty much an all-in Python guy, or are you still going to try and blend it with R, or how do you make that decision? Is it kind of an all or nothing, or do you kind of just keep adding tools?
Well, my career goal is head up into startup land, so I'll be the older guy amongst the kids with the hoodies. But a lot of them they're pretty much all in on Python, and there's more libraries being developed. What's interesting is the guy that developed Pandas just did it out of frustration with R. So a lot of the functionality from some of his favorite libraries he brought into Pandas, but also used his background as a programmer to kind of fill in the edges. Now he makes a kind of I would say it's a controversial criticism against R, that it's artificially inflated in popularity because a majority of the authors of these libraries are in academia making these programs or making the libraries and then essentially having their students use it. I don't know how much I would put to it. It does make a good story, but just given the fact that Python is commonly listed as the easiest language to pick up, that's really why I'll probably go all in for this minus the visualizations. And then for that one, that's where I got my Tableau down at the bottom there.
Well, this is remarkable. You got a really bright future, Andrew, if this is where you're at. So, well done.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, we got Andrew down. So who else would like to be next? Anybody? First volunteer.
I can
go.
I could go. Mine's different, and it's real short.
Oh, I like real short. Who's real short?
This is Mark.
Okay, Mark, and then I'm gonna let Siva go next. Siva, we're gonna give you a chance to load your screen again, and then.
Okay.
But we're gonna go with Mark first. Mark Ritter.
Sounds good.
Mark, let's see. Make you the presenter. This is Mark Ritter, correct?
Yep. So let's see here. I'm going to go share my screen. It said I need an Adobe Connect add-in. Would I like to install it now? Will that take a long time? Should we move beyond me?
Give it a shot. Let's see. This way, this might be a minute or two, and if it is, then we'll be good.
Your meeting has been opened in Adobe Connect add-in. You can now close this window. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
I can't see your screen, but you're going to have to put your speakers on mute.
Okay.
We keep hearing you echo to yourself.
Yep. Is that better?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, I'm not gonna put it in the full slideshow. I'll just click through. It's a real short presentation, and this is different. I'm not bringing in a technology or anything, but it's a branch of analytics that really seems to be hot right now. And I think a lot of what these little sync sessions are about is just to make us more aware of what's out there. And there's a branch of analytics that I've just been reading a lot of articles about, people analytics. And so I just thought I'd just
Wait, 1 second. There's some chats going on here. I hear, but Don, the phone audio is still okay. Don't see anything. I don't see anything either. I still don't see anything.
Okay, so what do you need? Let's see. So where do I need to get back to here? Let's go
You
here.
got to share your screen or something.
Okay, so I just don't want to click out of this one too soon here.
Is it still loading up something?
No, it just says your meeting has been opened in the Adobe Connect ad, and you can now close this window. But then it's going to have me close all these tabs. I don't want to do that. I'm having a hard time closing this window here. Let's do this.
You should be able to share your screen. In the meantime, we had a question from Thomas Burrell was asking, I'm going to try to get these things graded by Friday. If you can get them to me by that Tuesday, I'll get them to you hopefully by Friday, depending on how many of these get dropped on my lap. So did you hear that, John Vandervest? Uh-oh, anyone else? Is anyone on?
Yeah,
I still got you, Don.
Okay.
The computer audio dropped out, maybe.
Don't know.
Yeah,
I think it was just my phone. I was dialed in. All of a sudden, I lost the audio for everybody. I had to redial in. It was really weird.
I see. Well, Mark, we may have to come back to you in a little bit.
Yeah, I back screen that says nothing is being shared, so I don't have the screen sharing right. So let's see, maybe.
Let me try it one more time. Let me see if I can request you to share. Request share screen.
Okay, this is loading content. You've been requested. Okay, start. Okay, let's see here.
Oh, what do you know?
Okay, let's see now. I don't have it on my, so I'm just gonna, I have to put this on my desktop. Why don't you come back to me? I'm gonna throw what I'm gonna do on my desktop, and then it'll work out okay. Okay?
Okay, Siva, we're gonna go with you now. Is that okay?
Okay, yep, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try to share again. Hopefully it's going to work.
I'm going to make Mark, I'm going to make you a participant, and I'm going to make Siva the presenter.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. And Siva, I'm going to ask you to share your screen.
Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
No, we still see that little hourglass thing spinning around. We'll see. We'll wait a minute.
Okay.
This is going to make the presentation night really fun, isn't it? What?
Yeah.
Siva, what browser are you using? And Mark, what are you using?
I'm using Firefox.
Okay,
go
I'm
ahead.
using Internet Explorer is what I'm using.
Okay.
Selected the window
We did
to
this test
share.
earlier, and I was able to get it to go on Chrome.
You got it to go on Chrome?
Yeah.
Huh. Boy, this is fun. Okay. Well, Eric Gamble is typing something. Let's see what Eric is. Eric, give me the Deus Machina fix of this.
Okay,
I think it might require a browser. If you just installed the plugin, you might have to close out your browser to let it finish installing.
Is anyone able to see my screen now or no?
Nope, still not.
I tried to share again.
Try closing out of your browser and getting back in, and then in the meantime, we'll move on to the next person.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do that.
Okay. So, Mark,
I can go.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure my program will run because we did the.
Who's speaking? Is that Eric?
This is Paolo.
Paolo. Okay, Paolo. Okay, I'm gonna make you the presenter then. Okay. Go get them, Paulo.
Okay, let me just hit share again. And can you see my desktop right now?
That's it. I see your desktop.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick demo on a machine learning tool I found online. It's called BigML.
Okay.
I'm going to be working with the Fisher Iris data set. I'm sure everybody's run into this at one point in time. So it's a web-based machine learning tool. It's BigML.com. It is free to sign up. I'm not sure what the threshold is for the service as far as having to pay for it, but I've been able to make use of it for free so far. I'm just going to take you guys through the workflow of getting your data sets in, doing training and test set splits, getting some modeling done with decision trees, some random forest, some ensemble modeling, and then run you through the workflow for building some clusters. So the first thing you do after you sign in is you get this dashboard that you get. And the first thing you'll see is the option to bring in your sources. It can either be a CSV file or text file. It can come in from an Azure source, Microsoft Azure, Dropbox, two of the Google storage platforms. It can come from a URL. It can also come from your computer. So I've gone ahead and brought in the Iris, the Fisher Iris data set here. So once you have your data set in, or I mean your data source in, you got to convert it to a data set. They have several options here. They have the one-click data set where the tool tries to be a little smart and figure out what you're modeling. It tries to fish out your predictors and then your response variable. It's not always right, so what I usually do is I'll come here and I'll view the details of the data set. It also gives you the opportunity to correct it because it'll try to guess if things are numerical, categorical. It's not always right, but it gives you the opportunity to correct it. So when you configure your data set, you just hit create data set here. And it gives you the histogram here, just your basic statistics on each variable that it's brought in. And the next thing that you would usually do here is you would create your training and test splits. And it defaults to an 80-20. You can name the training set and the test set here. And you would create your training and test set by, again, clicking the button. And it brings you automatically into the training data set if you created a training and test set. So the next thing you would do here is you would want to either configure a model, configure an ensemble, or go through your cluster. If I have time, I'll try to go through all three, but I'll try to start with just configuring the model first. And the objective field is what BigML refers to as, it's the response variable, essentially. So here it's correctly assumed that I'm trying to predict the species of the flower. So this is what I'm trying to predict. If it was wrong, I would just go through the drop-down and pick exactly what it was I was trying to model. So since it was correct, I can also, let's see. Yeah, there's a bunch of other configurations you can go through here. Weights, we'll go through it a little bit in the clustering section, but you just create the model. It's pretty easy to create a decision tree using this tool. You can interact with the tree graphically. So here you can see the split was from petal length. And this is where 41 instances were classified as that. And you can just go through the decision tree and see the path that the model took. Is there any questions so far?
Can you manually alter the tree, or is it completely automated?
Alter as far as the pruning?
Yeah, can you prune the tree, and can you maybe change the split? Like if it's splitting on male and female, you could split on married and single instead?
Yeah, so there's some configuration to the pruning if you go back to the model. So if you go back to this model, in the configuration up here, oh, sorry, hang on. I can't quite find where it is, but there's an option where they have what they call no pruning, pruning, and like a smart pruning. No pruning just gives you all the branches, and then what they have is a smart pruning option that kind of gives you a lower threshold so that it'll include some branches that would otherwise have been pruned completely. But that's about as far as you can get as far as actually controlling the branches. So once you get past actually visually inspecting the tree, you go to your model summary report. It's just a brief histogram. It gives you variable importances. So visually inspecting this, we see that petal length was found to be the most predictive, followed by petal width and sepal width. And then the summary is, it gives you a text representation of data distribution, the predicted distribution, the field importance, which was the histogram we saw, and the various rules that the decision tree is representing. We can also go ahead and evaluate this model with the test set that we did earlier. So it automatically brings in the test set that we had, and you would just go ahead and hit evaluate, and that'll generate a confusion matrix to show you your false positives and your false negatives. This lets you compare the decisions based on how it did based on the mode and how it did based on a random guess. And let me go back and do the same thing for an ensemble model. So again, we take the same 80% split for the data set. Instead of configuring a model, we just configure ensemble. Again, you got to make sure that species is picked as the objective field. You can, depending on how much time you have, you can pick however many models you would like to include in the ensemble. It defaults to 10. So when you first configure the model, it gives you all these options. This is where you would, let's see. Weights is probably the only thing I've really messed with as far as pre-configuring. If your data set had numerical values that were just counts of something, and then you had things such as large amounts of money that could skew the values, if you were evaluating it as a number as well, you would just select a weight to kind of weight that down. Hope that made sense. So you create the ensemble again. This is a one-click thing. And it gives you the data distribution and predicted distribution for each model that's part of the ensemble as the histogram. You can go ahead and drill down into each model and see the same breakdown as you would for an individual model. And then you could go back and do the same thing and view the summary report. So it's pretty consistent with a single model, and you see the same summary print out here. And then you could also download an actionable model, which means you can bring this into Python, Java, Node.js if you want to export your model. You could also do batch prediction, which was you bring in a separate, because you're not stuck with a single test set that you made when you first created the model. You can bring in a second brand new set and essentially feed it into this model and generate your predictions. And the last thing I wanted to just kind of show you guys was how easy it is to do clustering with this. So if we just go through, we'll do the entire data set. It's not that big. I'm going to go ahead and configure a cluster. The only thing I want to configure with a cluster is, I know there's 3 categories, so I'm not going to force this thing to pick 8 clusters. I'm going to just do 3. If I can get this slider right. Oh my God.
Well, I think sensitive, huh?
Seriously. I can get it.
Can you use an arrow key?
Yeah, that's why they pay the big bucks. Yes, you can. Okay, so I set it to 3. The only thing I want to change here is I do want to unclick species, because I still want to include it in the cluster so I can identify what species they are, but I don't want it to actually take that into account, because then it'll just 100% cluster them correctly based on species. So I hit create cluster. And hopefully, if it did it right, we'll see 3 clusters where it actually grouped those 3 species. So here we see our 3 clusters that we asked it to create. The distances are scaled to how far away they are from each other's centroids. The size of the spheres don't necessarily represent spatially where the data points are relative to each other. It's more of a scale of how many data points belong to that cluster. Also, the centroids themselves don't necessarily represent a data point. It's just this, it's actually the center of this cluster. So we can go into each of these clusters and see I actually made a slight error creating a cluster because I wanted to include the species. One moment. So I made a slight error. I actually wanted to include that, but I wanted to scale it to 0 so it didn't matter. So I want to select species and set that to 0, and then create my clusters.
So Paulo, this is I'm guessing big machine learning here. Is this is a website that you could use, or what's the deal here?
Yeah, no, it's completely web-based. Once you upload your data to their server, it's all portable. So I mean, it's been pretty nice for me because as far as learning machine learning and clustering, and getting off the ground with it, it's point and click. So.
Is this a free site?
It is free. They do offer a paid service. I think it's depending on how large your data sets are, they start to charge you for additional storage. And if you want to run simultaneous tasks, I guess if your tasks are running that long and you need to run more than one, they'll start to charge you. But I've been able to use this for free. The clustering, especially for me, has been useful. Last semester, I was able to use this to build essentially like a recommendation engine, classifying different customers based on like a sentiment analysis we were doing. And it was pretty useful in just building the clusters. I didn't have to worry about typing out R code or Python code or doing this in Spss. I was able to do my clusters in about 5 minutes.
Well, this is very impressive, but we're kind of over time, so we might have to move on to the next person. But I like this. This is worth looking at. It's just,
Yeah,
what's
so,
the BigML.com, huh?
Yeah,
Yep.
BigML.com. I'll post the link in the chat, and pretty much all the information that I would know is right on their homepage. So I just encourage you guys to check it out and use it.
Impressive. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
That's no problem.
Yeah, let me see here. I'm gonna take away the ball from you. Okay, who's going to be next to talk here? You want Mark Ritter? You want me to give you another try?
You can give it another try. If it doesn't work, that's okay.
I'm going to make you. You seem to have 2 Mark Ritters on the screen. I'm going to make it Mark Ritter number 2 and see what happens.
Okay.
Make you the presenter and then ask you to share.
Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Okay.
Hey, I can see your screen.
Okay, so let's just see if it loads. Yeah, this is maybe a little different than what the other people are doing, and it's just going to be super quick. But I've just been reading a lot of articles, and I've been noticing a lot about this people analytics. And I guess just as just kind of alert other people into the class that might be a hot field in analytics to kind of look at, okay? And I even looked at our, you look at the courses offered at Northwestern. You have marketing analytics, risk analytics, web analytics, text analytics. They're bringing in sports analytics, but nowhere is there people analytics. And it seems like it's becoming a really big field, okay? So, there's been a lot of articles, like you see I highlighted in yellow, Forbes just this February, the Geeks Arrive in HR People Analytics is here. And I'm not going to read through it word for word, but those are some of the key ideas that just popped out when I read that article. Then you have like Washington Post just last August, People Analytics Moneyball for Human Resources, okay? And then, there was a big article in the Atlantic magazine that they're watching you at work, okay? And so I'm just going to roll through this pretty quick. Next big thing in big data is people analytics, okay? So you can kind of read through that if you want. And this one's really fascinating. I would recommend everyone should go, ironically, Google, and read some articles about how they use data to build a better worker. It's just absolutely fascinating. And, I highlighted some of the things in there. You can read at your leisure. But like in the second one where I highlighted in yellow, all people decisions at Google are to be based on data and analytics, okay? And then I thought it was interesting, further down that I highlighted, Google's leaders asked SETI, he's one of their big guys in the people analytics department, to focus on providing insights that could help decision makers improve the odds of getting complex decisions right. And then the next part, it goes, the goal of people analytics is to complement human decision makers, not replace them. And I think that's always a challenge in analytics, is finding that sweet spot between letting the data tell the entire story, but just kind of relying on your experience and your intuition to also, the interplay between those two. And I thought it was interesting. Google kind of leaned in the direction the analytics and the data is going to support the people part, not complement them, not replace them. And then this is a book that just came out recently, May 2nd, 2013. It's called People Analytics. And what they're doing is they're using the technology. It's, I'll show you that in a second. But they're using these powerful social levers. They go into companies and they have these people wear these badges and whatnot that gathers data on how they interact, like so on and so forth, how they communicate, what tasks they're on, and that's really helped them make some good decisions. But the guy who's the big guy in that is a guy named Ben Weber. He was out at the MIT lab. Are you guys hearing all this? Or?
Yeah, I'm loving this. This is
yeah, because it's so silent, I almost thought I was talking to no one. But he's out at this MIT lab, and he's an innovator, and he created these sensors that can really gather a lot of people-related information. It's really been powerful in helping people make decisions. And kind of the idea is it's they're trying to create, the thing that excited me about it is the whole emphasis is on trying to create better cultures, places where people perform better, but people also like being there, more. They've talked about creating what's called the irresistible company, where you just love working there, and then there's that interaction when you love working there, you're going to produce better. And it's also about like finding, hey, what's the best task to put people on, things like that. So I think it's a really ripe area for, graduates like ourselves to kind of keep an eye on, okay? And then this is actually what one of those devices looks like. It's called a sociometric badge. And if you read the part down below, a sociometric badge is a wearable electronic device capable of automatically measuring the amount of face-to-face interaction, conversational time, physical proximity to other people, and physical activity levels used using social signals derived from vocal features, body motion, and relative location. We have built several hundred sociometric badges, blah, 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 blah. But you can read that. But just the idea that they're really bringing in this technology to gather the data. It's a whole, that's the thing. When we first started this program, it was all about like Excel spreadsheets. But now the kind of data is so unstructured and coming from so many different sources, it's just exponentiating. So this is another example of that. And then they started a company, raised $12 million to market people analytics and kind of get these badges out in the marketplace. Okay. And then this has grown so much that there's even like Wharton's holding people analytics conferences. And you look at some of the sponsors, they're some of the real players out there in the world. And if you go to that site, just Google Wharton People Analytics Conference, and you look at the speakers they're bringing in, it's like heavy, heavy, heavy hitters, okay? From athletics, from, all the top companies, so on and so forth. And, that's coming up this April, so it's a hot thing out there. And then they even do a competition, kind of like Kaggle, and I thought it was really interesting. And they do a competition like this one was to empower low-income adults. So it's really kind of has kind of a higher interest, like a really noble goal with this contest. And you can win money, you get to present in front of a bunch of executives, so on and so forth. So I kind of rambled through it because there's just a lot of reading. I just kind of wanted to sell an idea of awareness on this is a right field in analytics, and we have a lot of talented people in this program, and I think this is we want to use our analytics for better business decisions, but I also think to make a better world, and I think this could be a tool to do that. So I just wanted to share it with the group.
Thank you so much. This is really, I never even heard of people analytics, and now this is what I love about teaching is I learn stuff from the students, and this is great.
I really like the presentation, and I wanted to add one of the main reasons that people analytics has all of a sudden become so important is because each day, for example, in the United States, 20,000 people are turning 65 years old. So if you really look at the career stage of employees who are in the company, average age is about 47, 48 in companies, and the what we call the early career stage, which is like 35 and less, is very small, and the mid career age up to 50, not so good, and then you have lots of people in the 50 and above age group. And if you look at the talent pool, you don't have that many people in the young age who can actually come in and fill those positions. And that's not just a problem in the United States, it's across the world, in Europe, even in China, because they had the one-child policy for a very, very long time. The only place a couple of places where you do not have this issue is India and South Africa, but South Africa doesn't have very skilled laborers. So actually, a lot of people are leaning towards India, but it's very important that our talent pool improves as well. So there are lots of companies that are popping up. There's one called Talent Neuron. They're doing lots of studies on where the talent is, and if you need, say, 20 mechanical engineers, they'll tell you exactly where you should be holding your job fairs in order to be able to attract that talent pool. So there's a lot going on. Lots of different companies are coming up with HR metrics, and all of a sudden everybody's like looking at people data and such.
I really think, when you look at businesses and, the whole idea of capturing that competitive advantage, and you kind of hear the thing, people are business's biggest asset. Well, I think they can be, but there's so much more to tap into. And so I think, I really, to me, this is a very exciting field, and I would think that, Northwestern, I would look, as a graduate, come back and look at their program, and I would think like in a year or two from now they should have a people analytics class, because I think it's really right. And the other thing, and I think there was some really excellent comments, and they are starting to actually make a little bit of a distinction between, talent analytics, HR analytics, and people analytics, and they kind of all fall under the same umbrella. But they all kind of have a little bit different point of emphasis. And the more I've read about people analytics, it's more of a cultural thing. And to me, culture is just everything in an organization. You create high-performing culture, everything else is going to follow. So I think this is a real hidden gem. So I just wanted to share it with the group.
Would you be kind enough to post this PowerPoint deck out there? on the information sharing or something.
Yep.
This is really interesting.
And I'll maybe put together a list of some good articles to read on it because they're really pretty fascinating. And so I just thought I'd share it. A little bit different than the other people. I didn't do a technology, but I thought it was something that would be worthy of sharing. So.
Well, this is open to any different topic. I mean, if you want this, anything is fair game in this. So, and I'm really glad you thought outside the box. That's a really great skill to have. That you're willing to, it's kind of scary to go this far off the beaten path, but it really worked this time. I'm really glad you did it.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So, well, okay, let's move on to the next person here. But I'm really glad you did that, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Let's see. Okay, Siva, we're going to try you yet again.
Okay, all right. Hopefully I'll make it work this time. I'm sorry. I've been disappointed.
Oh, you know what? That's okay. This is all right. We're going to...
Okay.
Siva, there you are, Siva, and we're going to make you the presenter.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to
okay,
cross our fingers and...
I'm going to try and do the share my screen.
Okay. Everybody cross your fingers.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, there it is. And ironically, it's measures of success.
That's true. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Steve will wow us here. Although now I've got a hat. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay. So, again, my presentation is not very technical, but I'm really talking about, when I say measures of success, I'm really talking about monitoring, model monitoring. From a business perspective, a lot of times what happens is I've seen this in my career, that excellent models are built, but there's not a clear path as to how it's going to be measured, the success is going to be measured. And when you don't do that, then you're not looking at the data ahead of time to see what is it that you need in order to measure, monitor, and be able to actually have a successful, sustainable model in place. So that's what this is all about, and I'll run through it really quickly. And I did put this together really quickly, so if you guys see any errors in here, please bear with me. So the purpose, just like I explained, is the measures of success is it's very important that it's well defined for the business, the people, the process, analytics, and the technology, because all of these things come together every time we have an analytics project. And the first part of it is going to talk about why are measures of success important, and then the second part is going to talk about the measures of success. And the first part is more about change management process, like when we bring a new project in, what is the change management process and why the measures of success are critical there. And defining our business opportunity, the launch strategies, and a little bit more about the pilot. And measures of success, the part 2 is going to talk about what are the measures of success that we would define, and the program evaluation, strategy, and the benefits to business, people, process, analytics, and technology. So change management process, usually when the analytics projects are coming through, I know executives usually want analytics. A number of times it's very important to explain to them what it is, and a lot of times they don't really know the actual, the analytics part of it, the technical side of it. So the first piece is just making them aware of what's happening, making not just the execs but also the stakeholders and everyone else, just bringing them along the journey, not waiting till the project actually launches and then trying to get them to accept a product. Instead, taking them along and making sure that their needs are being met in the model, and not just something that, even if it's an idea that we're coming up with, trying to tie it back to the business needs. And then understanding, and I don't think I'm going to say anything different from what all of us know, and understanding what it is, not just being aware of what's going to happen, but being able to understand. And then the next step would be accepting. When they accept it, then they're committing to that product, and they're saying, okay, yeah, here's a number that's going to come out of your model. Let's say we're looking at probability of payment for a credit. A check on a customer, and so now they're relying on this. They're feeling comfortable with it. They're saying, okay, I'm going to use this, and championing, then being able to actually take it to other people and say, hey, this is great, this is a wonderful product. And so that's the journey that we want them to take along with us and then come along with us in the journey. And that's very, very critical. And the measures of success will definitely help in this journey. So first telling them, here's how I'm going to do this. An example would be if we did a pilot or a treatment and a control or whatever that we do, once we explain to them, this is what I'm going to do, here's where I'm going to roll it out to a very small group, and then I'm going to bring you the results, and I want to make sure that you're okay. And so when it's very well defined up front and they know what they're getting into, it's very easy to bring them along the journey. And then the launch strategies. A number of times what happens is a great product is launched and then people leave, meaning they disappear. There's nobody there to come back and really, maintain the model, look at the, really monitor and control and sustain. And that's the most important thing, to bring about the continuity, being able to say, okay, here's where we are, and these are the tweaks we need to make to the model. A model once launched doesn't stay, this is something that all of us know in analytics. We definitely need to be looking at the concordance or whatever the measure may be, and we need to be making sure that we're at the right level. And then pilots, again, I just talked about the pilots, and those are really, really good. When you say, I'm not going to roll it out to the world, but I'm going to really open it up to this particular group, and that's a group that everyone agrees upon, the business and the analytics and IT and everyone else, and that helps a lot. And also doing the treatment and control type measures helps a lot. So we're going to talk a little bit about the measures of success and the program evaluation and how it impacts people. So this particular slide is showing how, in a really a snapshot view, we could actually present to, execs and showing them, here are the processes that I'm looking at, and here's my objective from a business opportunity perspective, and here are my tools, and these are the teams that are going to be playing in here. And so that gives them an idea of what's going on. So in this case, building a MIS infrastructure, I won't go through each and every one of these, but I'll just run through one of these as an example. And the objective would be building a robust database to capture input and output of pricing models. And then the tools, here are the tools that we're going to be using: DB2, Teradata, EDW, and then the teams. It's going to be the applications team and the DBA. The applications team would be really the IT team, which is going to actually display the numbers that are coming out of a pricing model. The DBA teams who are going to actually capture the data, and the analytics team who are going to actually build the models, and finance or any other group that's actually impacted. So in this case, finance, because we're talking about a pricing model. And also very clearly defining the measures of success. So here's the process, and here are the objectives for the measures of success. And here are the tools we're going to be using. So perform a program evaluation. What does that mean from an objective? What is the objective? Monitor the performance of the treatment and the control dealers on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Being very, very specific about the objective, not just setting a big goal, but being very clear about your specific objective. Publish evaluation reports, develop a comprehensive suite of reports to initiate analysis of impact from the program. So analyze impact using reports, analyze program impact to key performance indicators. And we're saying specifically, what is it that we're going to be measuring? We're going to be actually looking at ROE and PBT and the approvals and sales, so really laying out the key performance indicators. Adjusting the program, what would we do once we finish analyzing? We're going to actually fine-tune the segments based on analysis of reports, recalibrate the models. And so we're not going to leave the model abandoned up in production. We're actually going to look at it based off of all of this, and we would not only adjust the program and in order to do that, we would actually recalibrate the model and the tools that we would use. And this last piece is basically showing the continuity. So there is data, and so we do the, where did we start here? So implement the analytical model. Then you've got the MIS apps that are in there. Then deliver the marketing programs, and look at the data and create the reports, recalibrate models. So it should be a continuous process, and it should not be breaking up anywhere. And once we explain this and we tell them where we are, I think it really helps along the journey of the change management, where we take the customers and the stakeholders. And that's all I had.
So are
Any
you,
questions?
this is Don. I noticed some stuff seems to be censored out, so I'm guessing this is something you're working on at work?
Yes. Yeah. This is something that I did a while ago, Don. So I just took out like the key things. So it
I'm glad you did, because it's real world things. So basically, what you're talking about is, you obviously have to get buy-in when you implement these new models, and also you're dealing with what you have to monitor the model and make sure that it's still performing. Do you get like any kind of resistance for like you said, is that sometimes people do these models and then they sit on a shelf and they never get used? Is that strictly from a situation where people just like resisting the models, or they don't? What's the pushback? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so a number of times if people don't really take the time to monitor the model, and then the model starts performing poorly, and the results are not really doing what they were supposed to do. So in this example, if there were like, here's my, we showed at the beginning with the treatment and the control dealers, let's say we implemented this program to the dealers, and we said, this is all working greatly, and then nobody goes back and looks at any of this stuff. No reports are provided to anyone. A year later, you find out something that's running up in production is really not working the way it was supposed to be working, and it's in fact hurting your key performance indicators. And it's because it was, and now the model gets abandoned. Everybody says, okay, this is doing badly, take this down, no, we do not want to use this, and we may be looking at something completely new to put in place, while if we had actually monitored and we had looked at it, and all that is needed was a tweak and a turn, and the model would have performed better, and we could have continued on and not avoided all the additional efforts and the money and the time and all of that.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yep, that makes sense. So would you also post your slide deck out there on the internet?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll
and I'm glad I was able to share.
I appreciate your time on that. We had more people who might be interested in presenting. Who would that be?
This is Eric Gamble. I can present.
Okay. Let me see. Just a second. Let me make you the presenter. So I'm making you the presenter, Eric. Let me give some quick feedback while Eric gets set up here. The last two people who spoke, the first thing you guys did, I'm going to give you some constructive feedback. Don't ever apologize if your stuff is different. That's a strength, okay? You guys got... come in there strong and confident, because you got both of those were outside of the box, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing when you're not the same as everybody else. That's a good thing. So, be proud of the fact that you came up with a creative idea. So,
thanks.
Anyways, Eric Gamble, let's see what you have to say.
Is my screen on?
I can see your screen.
All right. That one's for you.
You're going to have to explain the joke to everybody, Eric.
Don and I grew up in an age when HP calculators were not just cool, but they were the go-to tool for techie people.
And he had, and the funny thing is when I met Eric in North Carolina, there was like a meetup down there, and I was at Spss, and I met up with a bunch of Northwestern people. And it's funny was I had on my cell phone, I hate my, Spss makes me carry a Samsung Galaxy, and I hate these things. I like I don't need all this high-tech stuff. But the one thing that it has that's so good is it's got a HP 42S simulator. And Eric, I said, but nobody even knows what a Hewlett-Packard is. And then Eric pulls up his cell phone, and he's got a 15C simulator on there, which is the other greatest calculator that ever lived. So we're Hewlett-Packard SANS. I love the 15C. It's a great calculator. So thanks, Eric.
It's especially fun to hand to people and watch them try to use it when there's no equal button on it.
That's right. Calculator with no equal.
So for my presentation, I dug back into a 410 data set that Don had for us. That it was a pin 0 challenge, he called it. And what it was, I think it was based off a Kaggle data set where, I'll just step into the data set here. So on the agenda, what I've got here, I'll talk about the data set. I want to go through an overview of SPSS Modeler and the whole idea of the GUI approach tool and some of the things it will do. And with this data set, I want to show a couple things with log transforms and how they're very powerful in modeling. And then also talk about the context of modeling and some of the decisions you make in log transforms, how that plays out. So on the data set, this pin 0 data set, it was a data set measuring handwriting motion on people, or I don't know exactly what the data was, but there were 20 continuous variables, and they ranged anywhere from 0 to 100 as far as the values on those. And the idea was it was assigned a 1 if it was actually a 0 that was written, and a 0 if it was something other than a 0 that was written. So anyway, this is a snapshot of the data set here. This particular data set, Don took the liberty of making it very dirty, which was good because it really helps show some of the modeling tools here. So SPSS Modeler, it's a GUI-based modeling tool. What I'll show you, there's a lot of internal, I'll call it data management and modeling support features, which are very sophisticated and very useful. At the same time, I'll talk about how to take those in context as a modeler, because you can't take that hat off entirely and go on autopilot. You may have heard about CRISP-DM modeling, the cross-industry standard process for data mining. SPSS Modeler is structured to integrate with that, and it also supports R and Python code plugins, and you can put those in with modeling nodes. So this is a snapshot of the work stream I'm going to step into on SPSS Modeler. So there's one trunk feeding the data in, and there's a SAS data file on the lower left, and I'll get into the tool here in a second. But as we go through it, I flow this into 4 different branches for modeling. 2 of these have log transforms, 2 of these branches do not, and then there's some other things I have going on in there for comparison, just to set the data straight. So let's step into model here. So I just went over to SPSS Modeler. So does everyone see that now?
Yes, I do. It's
all right. So there's a variety of nodes. There's a modeling palette down here. You select different source files. It can handle a lot of different source files, whether it's a variable file, CSV, tab, whatever it's set up to be. I can do import Excel, SAS, a variety of database files as well. And then it just steps through these different tabs of things. So you bring in a data file and you just flow this through a stream and you load things on here. So if I were going to be building this from scratch, I would just start dropping things on here, and you start building your set like that. Now, once you've seen your data, there's a couple automated tools on here. I'm going to do one real quick. There's a data audit tool. And I can take this data audit tool and very quickly I can do basic statistics, advanced statistics, whatever I want. But I'll just run this real quick. And what this does is I pop up a screen here. It goes through all the different variables in the data set for all the different fields. And I can very quickly go start to zoom in on some of this. So for doing EDA, it's pretty useful. It gives me counts as far as how many unique values. So if I'm dealing with categorical values and there's 700 different categories, I can figure that out real quick. And it's pretty quick at doing that. A lot of times as I'm building models, I'll run data audits on each of the nodes as I step through it and then clean them off later, just to verify that things are building correctly. In this particular data set, I would guess that maybe half of the fields or half the records, it was a lot. I'll just do a preview here. So you can see a lot of null values in here. This had a lot of null values, maybe even as many as half when I go through and populate. So one of the things I did is I did a filter here to clean out some of the high nulls. So, and I just arbitrarily set that. Let's just go on the expression bar. So if it had more than 13 nulls, I discarded the record. I could set that to use them all. I could set that clip level anywhere I want, but it's just to show that I can. And it ended up dropping maybe 500 out of the 7,500 records, for maybe about 400. Then I converted the nulls to means, and that's a choice again. You have all sorts of different filter options, but it's very easy to go right to your rules, set them up, and then have that run. And for whatever reason, and this happens a lot with data sets, there still were a few records that were just bad. I think a total of 9, and it wasn't clear how to clean them. So 9 out of 7 some thousand, I just dropped them just to keep the model moving. And I can go do some things later if I felt like I needed to include them, but there's plenty of records there. So I have 4 different flows here. The best flow, and I'll just step through that real quick. So because I'm getting into log transformations and because some of these go to 0, the challenge, one of the first questions is, okay, I can't take a log of 0, so what should I change my zeros to if I have zeros? And since these are scaled from 0 to 100, I just changed them to 1, something that was close enough to 0 but would go through a log algorithm fine. I also did a different flow where I changed those zeros to means just in case it was coded as a 0 and it was treated like a blank data. The effects on this particular data set are different, and it does matter, and that's where I step into the context. So it's not, this isn't always the way I would do it, but this is the way I do it with this data set, and the results show why, and I'll get into that. I did 70-30 splits. It's very easy to do a training split and test split on here. You can set a seeding value so you can do repeat, so that I can make sure that every time I split this, I can split it the same across any stream by seeding the splits. And that helps me if I have split models or split streams. Anyway, I have a flow here where I do the logarithm. I run it through a logistic algorithm. I have one here where I do the zeros and ones, and I run it through logistic without the logarithm. And then I did the same with zeros to means, and on both log logistic and the other. And just to show quickly, you can just run, your different gain plots on it. So I've got the training and the testing. And I'll go through some values I have in the PowerPoint slide, but it's very easy to go do the advanced modeling on here. For model selection, there's different ways I can go in here and I can change a view to just classification, or I can change it to all. Now, I do want to show 2 more items on here before I step out of this altogether. I'll put a note up here. So didn't want auto cluster, auto classifier is one, and then I've got another one here on auto data prep. So there's a lot of things I can do here on auto data prep where it will suggest transforms and it will show me transforms. In this particular model, and I'll talk about that more as far as the context, I ran their algorithm, which is usually very good on the SPSS model, where I'm actually using it on our project. It will make very useful suggestions as far as how to do transforms and what the predictive powers are. But in this case, using some of the techniques, that Don's taught us as far as how to impute values and use log transforms, I was able to beat the automated model every time going down this one path here, and I'll show more data on that. And I tried dropping in the data prep all the way up to the last node like giving it a last chance to take advantage of every piece of work I'd done and trying to re-swizzle it. So when you go inside one of these modeling nuggets, it'll show you the predictive power of the different variables here. But in this case, 5 of the log transforms are in the top 10 variables for the model. So that's just to show where they played their role. And I'll just go back over to the PowerPoint because I actually have some numbers in there to show. So just real quick, so the AUC scores, they're in the 0.8 to 0.88 range. These are the first two where I did the means. And I'll just go to the next slide here. This is where I actually substituted in 0 for 1. So the log logistic is on the left, and the logistic without the log is on the right. Goes from 0.86 to 0.88. This is a big difference. If I depending on logistic and depending on what the objective of the model is, if classifying a 1 as a 1 is very important, you'll see that in this model, I capture 64 out of that population, and in the other models, I capture 53 here or less. So as far as getting the ones classified correctly out of that population, it's not clear in AUC scores. It's not always clear in a percentage score. Sometimes you have to dig into the matrix and really understand your modeling objectives. And that just leads me to the next discussion. And I could go into discussions on SPSS Modeler and some of these techniques all day long, but the one thing I want to really touch upon is just modeling context. And the SPSS Modeler tool, it is very useful and very powerful. I can do a lot of things with it that writing code would take substantially longer. In the context of a log transform, again, it depends on the data set, and going back to something that Don has taught us as far as the difference between statistics and I think modeling, as he described it, was like boxing and street fighting. And, so I chose to use a 1 in that particular model in place of a 0 value. And a statistician might argue with me about it, but from a modeling standpoint, it worked. And so my personal opinion is I would go with it.
Yeah, if it works, it's right.
Yeah. So, and that goes back into the context of imputations and transformations. The automated tooling, or the automated features in SPSS Modeler were good. They're helpful, but at the same time, I could still apply some of the fundamentals that I know and outperform it or come up with a better model, or maybe a more parsimonious model. So tools do not replace the data scientist, and we're going to see more and more automated, more sophisticated tools as time goes on. My view is that data scientists should be using these tools to perfect what I call the art. These advanced tools can really allow a data scientist to go try more things quickly that they might not have had time to get to. It can test some ideas quickly. So the tool will bring efficiency and speed, not necessarily shortcuts. Another thing that's philosophical to me that I get into with the heavy automation on the tools, at some point as a modeler, you can, and I've been here, where you lose control of the model. If too much of it's automated or too much of it's unknown. I'm not this isn't necessarily a discussion of neural networks versus, black box type discussion. It's the type of thing where there's instabilities in the model you've created just because you don't have control of the architecture anymore. Something else is shifted. And there are implications with that, and that's why I put the question mark there. Perhaps you have to do more training, more tuning, more testing, more monitoring of the results because of that. But it's just to be aware as you use more automated tools, in my opinion, you need to be more tuned into what the potential instabilities are now. And my last comment on here is even Watson needs context. So I'm an IBMer, And there's a link there, and if you go to it, it's a pretty funny read. But they downloaded the Urban Dictionary to Watson a couple of years ago, and Watson found some language that he really liked. So that's all I wanted to cover tonight.
I have a quick question for you, Eric. This is SPSS.
Yeah.
Now, I know some universities give SPSS Clementine, or the product formerly known as Clementine. This is Clementine as I know it. As a SAS guy, we know this as Clementine. Do you guys call it Clementine in IBM?
No, we call it Modeler now.
Okay, but you know that it used to be called Clementine.
Yes, yes. And it's not to be confused. Some people confuse it with SPSS Statistics. That's actually a different package. It's the same branding area, but and same with the Text Analytics. Text Analytics is a plugin for Modeler as well.
But now, I know that some universities get this for free. Do you know if Northwestern, if students can get this, or?
So they make it so you can get like a 90-day license. Now I'm doing some internal negotiations with our software group to try to figure out if we can move this out to like 6 months to a year academic licenses for people. Only because, right, as a student, you don't want to go invest a lot of time into a tool that's going to expire in 90 days, and you don't know if you're going to get to use it in another class.
That's a very, very good point. I really like this. If you ever do that, I'll give students bonus points for using it in my class, because I've used. I mean, I'm a SAS guy, and I've used this as this is a very nice tool. You know, even though they technically compete with us, I can still say this is a good tool. And you know, obviously there's a lot of good tools out there, and this is one worth knowing. But of course, the really cool people use SAS. You know.
Yeah.
That's a little joke,
well,
Eric.
Yeah, I know. I will show you one thing real quick that you may like here. It won't take but a minute here. So there's an automated tool here to do an auto classifier. Actually, I did the cluster one. Let me do this. So you talk about the model deathmatch or whatever. Anyway, you can load all these different models in here and set all your parameters to go. And it will go through and do a deathmatch of all the tools and do an ensemble at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So
that's cool.
And on bigger models, it can take some time to run, but it's interesting. And you can put multiple things in there, like you could, like on the chi-square tree, I could put one in there that's very basic. I could put one in there that's exhaustive, and on the neural nets, I could do some different settings. So you can not only do one model, you can do multiple iterations of a model type and put them all in there for a big death match.
That's really interesting. I like this. So let me know if you can get this for, like I said, I agree with you, 30 days or 90 days, students aren't going to want to invest the time, but if they can get this for 6 months or a year, that's certainly becomes very appealing.
Yeah, the next best thing I know is, like, if you go through Journey Ed, you can buy it the full, you can buy a 1-year license for like $100, but again, right, when you're dealing with students, free's better, so I'm working on the free angle.
Oh, hey, keep me posted. I really like it. So, well, hey, thank you very much, Eric.
Sure.
Okay, does anybody else want to talk tonight, or are we done? Okay, well, I guess that's the end of the sync session here. Does anybody have any final questions about due dates or the final presentations or any, basically anything going on? I'm going to draft you, Andrew. You got any questions for me?
No questions for me at this time.
No questions, huh? What about you, Paolo?
No, I'm good right now. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, Siva, I'm picking on people who are on the phone.
Yeah, just maybe one quick, like, what did you think of the all hands on deck? Were there any impressions you had on those? Just some real quick feedback on it, like what you liked or?
You know what I love about that? I did it last quarter as well, and I feel bad doing it because it's right when you guys are got stuff that has to get done, and I feel bad doing it, but I'm always impressed at it because people have to cram a lot of information at a high executive level in like 2 or 3 pages. And I read them last time and I said, man, just reading these things, I didn't think, when I first assigned it last quarter, I'm going to get to your feedback in a minute, but when I signed it last quarter, I remember reading these things and not expecting a lot. It was mostly just to keep throwing stuff at you, like so that you get a sense of what it's like to do a project in a real world. The boss throws unrealistic demands at you. But what I find is so interesting is that when I read them last quarter, I said, my gosh, these are really useful. I was learning a lot from them. And then I did it this quarter, and they were even better. I mean, they were really some high-quality stuff, and that's why I asked for permission from everybody. Can I disseminate them amongst the other students? Because you know what? This is what I would do. Take these things, download them all, and then when the quarter's over, sit down and, with a cup of coffee and read these things, and, looking through the thing on like people analytics or people who wrote some things on random forests or gradient boosting, you sit there and you read like a 1 or 2 page paper on this, and suddenly you're out there in the real world, and just because you read somebody else's paper on this stuff, you can talk intelligently on this, and you suddenly look like an expert on analytics. So I guess my punchline is I was really impressed with the quality of them. They were all better than even last quarter, and that's why I really hope that you guys all, download these, save them to a zip file, and read them real quick after this class is over. I really was delighted with what I read.
That's
Thanks.
great.
So, well, you guys... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I didn't have any questions. You called me out, just letting you know. I didn't have any other questions at this time.
Okay, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that sometimes people are afraid to ask questions, so I draft them.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any feedback for me? This is the second quarter I've done this, and nobody says a word. Is that a unrealistic or not unrealistic? Is it a nasty thing to be doing to you at that time? It's intended to be a little bit harsh, but I'm curious what your thought is on getting that opinion paper at that time.
I actually really liked it. It was challenging. I had to sit down and think through and come back with an idea. I played with the number of things, and I was thinking about stuff I have done and not done, and so and then being able to cram that into 3 pages, which is what usually it's 1 pager, right? Everywhere you go. So I thought it was really a great exercise.
So it wasn't too much of a pain in the neck for you guys. I mean, as I assigned that thing, I always feel real bad, and I always hear you guys cursing me through the computer, and I always. But at the same time, it's important to give you guys. I mean, I don't want to give you the impression that I'm the last word of expertise on all things in the real world. I know some of you guys are out there right now, and so your experience is probably not the same as mine, but all I'm doing is giving you another flavor. Like if you go to another company, you might end up with something like this, and you could probably give me examples of what you do that is totally foreign to me. So I'm just trying to give you an experience of doing an analytic project in a corporation, based on some of the places I've been.
I like.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say I also like the fact that it was not a specific format that was given to us, and you didn't ask us to put it down that way. So it gave a little bit of room to be creative and think and use our own way of writing it. So I think that was helpful as well. Sorry, I know I interrupted someone else.
Oh, I was just going to say to what you said, Siva, is I find that to me it's a lot more enjoyable to grade and to read these things when I don't force you guys into a box, because I'm always amazed at when I open it up and I just say, do this with vague instructions, the students almost always exceed my wildest expectations. I'm always amazed at the things you guys do, and I'm thinking, gosh, in a million years I wouldn't have thought of that. The approach, I would have never wanted, even asked for this kind of quality, and then I get even more than that. So that's why I love when, open-ended things like that. So somebody else was about to say something, too.
Yeah, I just had some feedback for you. As far as the timing of it, I think it would really depend on, as far as my group, we had just gotten, the day before it came out, we had just gotten done getting together after you had given us the grade for the last paper. So we had kind of got a game plan going, and then the very next day we got that. So it kind of threw us for a loop. So I think it's going to be a very relative experience depending on when you put it out and what exactly the groups already have in motion. But as far as the instruction, I think it was fine. I think the biggest challenge for me wasn't really picking a topic. Since we had such a short time to do it, I wasn't going to pick something that I had to research from the ground up.
That's smart.
I picked something that I was fairly familiar with. And so the biggest challenge for me was actually making sure that this imaginary CEO would understand it, because the vaguest thing for me wasn't the instruction. It was the technical aptitude of this person that I was writing to. So that kind of made me do a couple of rewrites, because, I did a Python module, pandas, and just describing it, okay, does this guy know what data is? I guess it's just like the baseline knowledge, like where do I start? Like, since he's the CEO of a tech firm, can I assume some technical knowledge?
Well, yeah, you can assume a certain amount, but it's kind of like, I want you to remember this the rest of your life, that someday you're going to be out there, especially if you're in like a startup company or something. This is the kind of thing that you're going to be like, you got this plan and this thing, and all of a sudden, one of these stupid projects that the only thing it does is waste your time, and you're like, this is stupid, but it's coming from the boss. And then you'll begin to start factoring in this, time wasting or these time drains into your project schedule. It's like, oh, the boss is going to ask me to do something stupid, so I got to, have some slippage in my project for this. But
no, yeah, that's a constant nightmare for me. My worst time of the year is when the boss comes back from a tech convention. It's like, he got drunk on buzzwords while he was away, and it's like, we need to do all of this.
That is why I came up with this project. It was with me. It was gradient boosting. My manager at a company I was at, gradient boosting was the flavor of the month analytically, and it was all gradient boosting. And the next thing I know, I've got some deadline staring me in the face, and I'm writing up a paper on gradient boosting, and I'm like, this is stupid. But I know what you're saying. It's the buzzword bingo here. Oh, here, Eric, I got something for you.
Nice.
That's my 15C. Anyway.
Those are worth a lot on eBay.
This is not for sale. I love this thing.
When we communicate with the CEO, one little part I was struggling with is how familiar to be with them. Is it just the relationship part of it?
Well, obviously, don't you can have a little fun with it. This is me. Come on, Some people are real super formal. Some people, do a little tongue-in-cheek stuff in there. Probably you don't want to be.
Could I have referenced our imaginary time at MIT together and just gotten super
Have fun. Come on. Go ahead. Don't ask me for permission. Just do it. Okay, I'm going to teach you something else. I want you to remember, it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. I did have one student last quarter who wrote this great big giant, thing on the discussion board about, Jason Snidely and how much, how bad they were, And I said, listen, I wrote him a note. I said, listen, don't put this down on paper because it's going to come back and haunt you someday. You don't know if I get whacked as the CEO and suddenly Jason shows up and he ends up being the CEO, you might end up this could come back and bite you. So I give you a little career advice like that, but it's not like I'm going to fail somebody for that. But have fun. I mean, enjoy the class. Does it do gradient boosting? No, Elliot, this does not do gradient boosting. And throw it out. Oh my gosh. Only Eric and I understand the beauty of one of these things. So anyways, I got nothing else, guys. I mean, these were really outstanding talks. I enjoyed them all. I mean, especially when you think outside the box. The only thing I can tell you is come at your presentations in 2 weeks or so. Come at them with confidence, and if you got somebody who doesn't speak so well, don't put them in front of me to talk. Get your good speakers. You can all speak. One person can speak. I don't care, but don't bore me, and don't do derivations and proofs. Show me what you did. Show me how I can make money with it. Any other thoughts, questions? Anybody want advice on political prognostication, affairs of the heart, any of that stuff? Nothing, huh?
Just a quick question. Not really sure if it's going to happen or not, but how available are you to join a weekly scheduled group call? Do you have availability that you could kind of?
I guess if you schedule it and I'm free, I will attend it if I can. I mean, if I can do it, I probably wouldn't do it every single week, because that's 8 classes, 8 students. That's 8 groups. That's kind of a lot, but I can attend these things on occasion, sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
But it's kind of late in the quarter to be asking that, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but it was just a one-off kind of thing. It's not something we.
Well, yeah, I've had
specific guidance we were looking for.
Oh yeah, I've had students do that last quarter. I mean, they got some feedback and they were really not happy, and I said call me up, and so they all called me up and I walked them through what I wanted, and they were like, well, we're real close. I said, I know, and don't panic, but I get on the phone with me. I take the calls. If I'm free, I'll take the calls. So, I got, let's see, dropping off down the class. See you later, Siva. I'm going to close this down in 1 second now, guys. I'm going to stop recording right now.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Siva. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.